Biblical Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host. The y'all mean of revolution. The fall of America is here. Get your house in order. Before we get into that, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button. You in the House of Revolution. Like, share, subscribe, support the platform. Y'all very disgusting, murderous behavior by these criminals. America, look in the mirror. This is who you are. The fall of America is here. These crazy fascist bigots are at each other's throats for it all. This is a fight for more for them and less for us. That's a fact. I'm so sick of playing the games, but I don't like what I'm seeing because you see these Gestapo troops, they like what they like this atmosphere. And don't never forget, once they through with the white niggas, they're going to turn back around and try to finish us off. No, it needs to be the end of this wicked empire right now. Let's get into the content. We just got to survive. They don't need to stop. We just got to survive. This is judgment. This is biblical. It was written. This will happen. The white niggas didn't want to treat us right. So their brethren turned on them because they didn't want to do the righteous thing. They want to straddle the fence. The Luke thing. This is what happens when you straddle the fence, you see? See, the racist bigots is coming in to clean to check and harass and kill the white niggas for going against their beliefs. You know, they say you have forgot why we came over here. That's to rule all the niggas. That's to rule all coloreds, brown people, every individual except the good people that came over here from Europe. And the white niggas, you know, they got a new ideology now. You don't just have to be a man or a woman. You could be all kind of different things. You know, you don't even need men anymore. That's how some of these new white niggas, that's just the truth. That's just how they think. And some of the old whites, they don't like that type of thinking. They want to get back to just running the niggas. And this is going to be a very bloody war over who controls the niggas. That's just factual. I got to be ready for this, man.
Gestapo 7, you guys are looking at chaos unfolding in Minneapolis. We have yet another shooting incident here.
They didn't have to kill this white guy right here. But he did come down there. They have to kill him. That's wrong. The good book says murder is wrong. That man was murdered. Any of y'all justifying murder, you're going against the good book. Murder is wrong. They shouldn't have murdered that man. But this guy down here came down there to agitate. That's just a fact. There was no liberation to be found in those streets for those immigrants. The real liberation would have been if they came out on behalf of us and our reparations and cleaning the slate of this goddamn country so they probably wouldn't get this judgment that's going to come on their heads. This man have died with no honor. This man, I don't want to get this understood. An honorable thing would have been for this man to die wiping the slate of America, your original sin. He went out there and died for a new sin, I guess. Jacking up women and kids and elderly people. Another thing, I wanted illegals who come over here illegally to get the hell. I wanted them to get the hell out this goddamn country. I never said murder innocent people in those streets. A lot of y'all want the illegals gone too. These people killing people in the goddamn streets. Some of y'all said, well, you know, it ain't got nothing to do with us. But who the hell are you to go along with people getting gunned down for no reason at all? We have never went along with that. That's wicked. That's why we don't like that type of BS. But I have to warn the white niggas. You are getting what you're getting because you have decided to play footsies with your brethren over there. You know, the ones that anytime you want to go against us, you side with them. Remember, we all white. You don't want to give us our reparations. You don't want to give us our... You see, the police wouldn't be acting like this had you passed some of those goddamn bills you promised us when we put you into the presidency. We gave the Democrats the House. We gave them the Senate. They didn't give a shit in return. Joe Biden looked in our face. That's why Trump is in power. Joe Biden looked us in our face, and Joe Biden said, y'all gonna have to get with the Spanish-speaking people. He told the Congressional Black Caucus they was gonna have to side with the Spanish-speaking people to get what we wanted to get, and that's why they tried to move towards all these illegal immigrants. Biden told them that's what the future was. White niggas, do you remember you killed that lady? Do you remember, white niggas, that you killed that lady that was attacking the Capitol? Y'all killed that woman. Now, do you see what they giving y'all for that? This is tit for tat. Understand this. This is tit for tat they doing here. Playing with our lives. This dude went down there. He a veteran. He put his life on the line for immigrants from Somalia. This is a fact. They stealing all that goddamn money in Minnesota. I'm pissed off about that. And this man lost his life because America loves violence. And he was in the military. He should have understood who he was dealing with.
And as you can see right there in the footage, agents and protesters squaring off already en masse in the streets. The guy on the right in this image was apparently stopped or confronted by agents in the streets. We're
going to look at the video. He put his hands on an agent, you know, and he tried to rescue a white woman who had been pushed down and maced and all that shit. But what the hell was she doing? They out there blowing whistles and all kind of nonsense. Nobody need to listen to any of these people. They're going to get a bunch of people killed. They're out there blowing whistles. The ICE agents showing up. They are creating the atmosphere. Some of them wanted this to happen. They're out there creating the atmosphere for an officer to just say, man, I'm under threat and just get to killing people. What they doing? But one thing these white niggas never thought is they would hear these officers. The same BS they justify killing us. They saying the same thing. I fear for my life. White people are shocked like he didn't reach for nothing. That's what the fuck we've been telling y'all. But you still side with your own. You still side with your own. Now look what you've done.
Still a lack of information surrounding this whole thing. But this individual was stopped. Apparently a gun was seen by agents. They opened fire and they killed the guy. There's video of it out there, which I'm not going to be able to play here. But there's a skirmish with a bunch of agents on this guy here. And after the shots are fired, I mean, he's dead. He's laying there dead without a doubt. Instantly, protesters swarmed the vicinity, not even knowing all the details. And chaos ensued. I will say this, anyone out there that wants to feed into any left-right stuff and you want to threaten other people, especially in my chat or anything associated with my channel, you can just go ahead and bounce. Anyone that wants to feed into this, and
this is up. Remember, ICE agents done been shot, and so this is up. It's up. It's smoke now. Like I said in the video I dropped earlier, the white niggas, but these white revolutionary radicals, Antifa, whoever the hell they are, they ain't gonna lay down. They ain't finna stop. But I have a problem with the anarchy. See, a lot of these people, they just want anarchy. They love chaos. A lot of these people is the same people that went to the Black Lives Matter protest and started just causing a bunch of chaos and confused a lot of those young black people who didn't go out there for all that. They thought they were standing up for black people, and the next thing you know, shit was on fire when you had white boys like this show up. Military white boys busting windows out, doing all kind of crazy shit. It was caught on video. See, the Antifa cats, I'm not saying they should be murdered in the goddamn streets in cold blood, but I'm saying we're not fools. These people showing up to Minnesota for what? What does he do? What is this guy doing now? The police say he had a gun on him. He didn't pull it, but he had a gun on him. You got a right to have weapons. But he put his hands, we're going to watch the video, on the officer. He was a dead man after that. Why? You're going to see, he was a dead man after that, and he didn't even know it. He pushed that officer. That's
play right into the trap of fighting against other people
See,
over
the thing
this.
about the white niggas and whites in general, they can push officers. We seen plenty of videos. They can fight them, they can shoot them, and not get shot, and sometimes not even go to jail. But what these people don't understand is they're not finna get. They have been labeled Antifa, white niggas. They've been labeled communist, white niggas. No, they getting treated like black people. And that's what really pissing them off so fucking much, because they like, what? Like, we can push the poll. This is how. No, you are getting the laws that you put on the books against us. I can tell y'all, Democrats all throughout this goddamn country, they didn't give a shit about fixing them Gestapo laws as long as it was happening to us. Now they're getting a taste of their own medicine. Trump done labeled these bastards Antifa. They got problems on their hands.
These events, again, you've been warned. Everyone can have their opinion, but your threats are not going to be tolerated. So this man right here, deceased, as I said, you really have to examine the video footage. And
that man lost his life.
Beyond that, they're saying that this guy came up with the gun, the agents are, and they saw him, and they went to try to get it away from him. The video footage shows something a little bit different. Like, there's one wrestling him, but once they get him to the ground, it's like they all seen something. Maybe the gun popped out there, and that's when they all seen it, and they all backed off, and then shots fired, and he's dead. Some are saying that he's a citizen with a permit to carry. Listen, again, all these details.
He's a military veteran. He's a military veteran. They don't give a shit about that when they label you a white nigga Antifa. They don't give a damn if you've been no military or not. He never reached for no gun. He was on the ground. They was pistol whipping him, beating him. We gonna see the video. They were beating him, pistol whipping him like they do to white niggas, like they do to us. He ain't getting nowhere. He Antifa to them. And then one of them yelled what they always yell. He has a gun. He has something, and he was dead. Now, nobody on the scene seen a gun. And all of a sudden, the feds and the police saying, yes, he had a gun. They probably planning something on that man like they do us. Everybody's shocked. We didn't see no gun. You never see a fucking gun, but you let them do that bullshit to us. It'd be a remote. Killers. Candy bar, you're dead. Glasses. And the lowest of the low, your own ID, they tell you to reach for it, then shoot you.
100%. But some of the stuff being talked about out there. This is no doubt going to fuel the fire up here. It already has. And I wouldn't doubt one bit if Donald Trump rolls out the Insurrection Act in response to all this here rather quickly.
Oh, this is going to be civil war because the governor, he just called up the National Guard. So it's going to be the National Guards, which is under the authority of the governor. And let's Trump try to pull a King Trump move. That's a fact. That's what the states' rights is all about. Those state troops supposed to be under the leadership of the governor. The governor is saying, hey, he's calling the soldiers to go attack these agents. So that's what you call a civil war.
So that is some of the latest here. As I get more details, I will kick them out on X. But again, if you're looking to go
let's see some of this good footage of what happened. Because like I say, even though he was agitating, he touched the car, he grabbed the police, you can't do that. The man, I'm on record, the man didn't deserve to get gunned down like that in cold blood, but this is America, and this is what they do.
More than 6 masked agents pummeling one of our constituents and shooting him to death.
ICE have been caught on video, pepper spraying, beating, and then executing a 37-year-old man in broad daylight from multiple angles. And this happened after he attempted to help a woman who had just been pepper sprayed by an ICE agent. So in this video, I'm going to show you what happened, I'm going to get to the reaction that is full of lies from DHS, the obvious lies, because we can see what happened on camera. And I'm also going to get to the reaction from some politicians, including the mayor of Minneapolis. So here is what happened leading up to the execution of this man. So this is the guy here who ends up being killed. He's holding a phone, recording them, a legal observer, doing nothing wrong. This car is just driving by.
All right, let's go around.
Now we can get to a different angle here. This is the first angle that came out of the shooting. This is the tail end of what happened, because we'll get to another angle that shows the beginning of it. But they're pinning the man down. There's like 6 agents on him. We're going to get to the angle from this lady in the pink here after. But this man's pinned down. They're beating him. And then right there, shots were fired. If we bring the audio up.
Oh shit! What the fuck?
Continues to shoot him.
Continue to shoot him. Man laying on the
About 10
ground.
shots.
Stood over.
Continues to shoot
Stood over.
as the man is on the ground. Lifeless on the ground. Continues shooting his body. And take a look at look at this guy. This ICE agent right here. He clearly knows what just happened. We just murdered a guy. Runs away, pulls his mask up, makes sure his face is covered, gets out of there as soon as possible. Leaves the scene. They're aware of what they just did. Here is the full thing from the angle with the lady in pink. So the whistle, by the way, in case you don't know, the whistles you're hearing they're distributed to protesters in an attempt to try and disrupt ICE's disrupt.
Yeah, and that's
ISIS
bullshit.
dealings.
That's blowing them whistles and shit.
So there's the guy there.
That's just nonsense. So these motherfuckers blowing these whistles, they gotta take responsibility for this bullshit, bro. Fuck are they doing?
You
They ain't
see
helping
his
nobody.
hand is free. He's recording with his camera.
When it's time to die, none of them do shit. What did you kill him for? Why did you kill him? He was gonna die.
Here he is helping the woman out. This ICE agent pushes this lady to the ground. See it again. She's not doing anything, standing there, likely holding up her phone camera. Pushed over. Now this ICE agent is pepper spraying him. He goes to help this woman on the ground.
But he underestimated his own people. He didn't know his people
Trying
was
to get her out of
doing like
there.
this.
ICE agent continues to pepper spray him as this man is not doing anything. He's just trying to help this woman off the ground. ICE pulls him out. Push him to the ground. This is when they start beating him. He's on the ground. About 5 or 6 ICE agents on him.
Watch this cop. Bam. Bam.
Watch as
bam.
this guy right here.
That's cold,
This guy
bro.
right here pulls out his gun.
Now look,
Again, this man's on
this guy on his knees, bro. His back is to this cop. His back is to this cop.
the ground. His back is to him. Pulls out his gun.
Pulls out his gun and then starts shooting him. I'm talking when you're talking about execute a person in cold blood. This video going all around the world. They executed that man in cold blood, and just saying the same old shit you say about why you killed people, and it's usually a black person. So everybody just be like, "Oh, fuck it." Remember, this country is majority white. Now that's one thing. These whites, I've been calling them the white niggas, they're not gonna put up with this type of shit, bro. See, the Congressional Black Caucus done had us to where these white niggas, they already done been shooting at ICE agents. These white niggas They're gonna cause chaos. They want a civil war. Because they also have firearms. They also part of the fucking government. They also have power. They're white. This is a major problem that's taking place right now. And ain't no putting the genie back in the bottle for what this Gestapo just did. This dude is on his knees. For you to say he got a gun, okay, cool. But he ain't reaching for it. But these people are trained. When they say gun, you dead. They do this to us all the time. They say he has a weapon. You're dead. But they just did this on this white guy this time. But the white guy was no threat.
Start shooting him.
And they killed him anyway. Then stood over him.
Why? Because he can. Because he saw another guy shoot a mother of 3, get away with it. This guy decides, you know what, I'm going to shoot this man.
First of all, once that dude, see,
It's horrifying.
once he touched him, he was dead. Off the bat, once he touched the cop, he was dead. He just waited on one of those cops to feel like killing him.
As he's on the ground, this agent continues to shoot his body.
My God! Oh my God! Oh my God! The fuck did you just do? The fuck did you just do?
He was trying to help somebody, and they executed him. If this man dies, which he did, of course, this is murder.
That's not helping nobody.
no
He was definitely
possible-
murdered. That's wrong. The Most High frowns upon this, but this is judgment. And this is horrible. But he absolutely was agitating people
Legal
and doing shit he
rationale
didn't have
for
no
backing
business
up
doing.
and firing multiple shots into a man who's lying flat on the ground. There's no ambiguity here. Those shots are to kill, not to stop a threat. So DHS comes out, says he was armed with a gun. They post the image of the gun here. If you break down the first angle that was released, zoom in, you can see, by the way, we'll get to the clip in a second here, but this man was legally able to carry a gun. This is America, right? These people carry guns. That's what happens in America. Apparently it's now illegal to carry a gun according to ICE, but he wasn't brandishing it. He wasn't holding it. He wasn't even using nothing. There's no threat here. But watch as they take the gun out of his back pocket or out of his holster. Again, the gun that he's legally able to have.
Revolutionary salute.
At this point, no shots have been fired. They're taking the gun off of him that one of them see. Takes the gun. It's right there. Right here. Takes it out. Appears to toss it aside. And then after this, after they remove his gun, is when they shoot him. So again, no threat at all. Wasn't a threat to begin with. He's on the ground. He's turtled, like they're beating him to death. And he's shot after this, as he's on the ground facing the sidewalk. So DHS comes out, this statement saying the officers attempted to disarm the suspect, but the armed suspect violently resisted. You just saw what happened. I don't have to explain this. Fearing for his life and the lives and safety of fellow officers, an agent fired defensive shots. He was facing the sidewalk. And then even after he was shot initially, while he was no threat to anybody, they continued to shoot him as he laid lifeless on the ground. The suspect also had 2 magazines and no ID. This looks like a situation where an individual wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement. You saw the video. He was trying to help a woman up who had been pushed down by ICE. Shannon Watts shared this. The same administration that venerates Kyle Rittenhouse, who showed up at a protest like this. So here is the Minneapolis police chief.
as well. But I think the video speaks for itself. What I can tell you is we have identified this person, 37-year-old white male, resident of the city. The only interaction that we are aware of with law enforcement has been for traffic tickets, and we believe he is a lawful gun owner with a permit to carry.
Chief, can you clarify, was
Lawful gun owner with a permit to carry. This man is legally allowed to have a gun. He clearly wasn't a threat. He wasn't using it. He wasn't holding it. And in fact, they even took it off of him before they executed him.
This is America. This is
Hassan writing, since they claim driving a car away from an ICE agent was a justified reason for killing Renee Good, I suspect the right will now defend this state-sanctioned execution on the post hoc justification that the victim was a gun owner in a country where approximately 80 million people have a firearm. And CBS News, of course, run by ICE lackeys, already pushing this. CBS confirms suspect had a firearm. Complete garbage. And apparently, so the Tribune reported ICE
He should have used it if he was
has
going out
transported
there.
several
Stand up
witnesses
straight.
into detention. So appearing to lock up witnesses to
What do
their
you have it on? That's what I'm saying. Why bring it, bro? You going to handle business? Handle business. He underestimated his people.
Matt,
He was gonna do
Matt
nothing.
McDermott sharing ICE is now responsible for 66% of the homicides in Minneapolis this year. AOC writing, Americans are being killed in the street by their government. Our Constitution is being shredded and our rights are dissolving. Resist. Senate Dems should block ICE funding this week. Activate the National Guard. We can and must stop this. Here is the Minneapolis mayor, Jacob Frey, and his reaction.
I just saw a video of more than 6 masked agents pummeling one of our constituents and shooting him to death. How many more residents, how many more Americans need to die or get badly hurt for this operation to end? How many more lives need to be lost before this administration realizes that a political and partisan narrative is not as important as American values? How many times must local and national leaders must plead with you, Donald Trump, to end this operation and recognize that this is not creating safety in our city? As you'll hear from Director Sayer in just a second, we have seen these kinds of operations in other places, in other countries, but not here in America. Not in a way where a great American city is being invaded by its own federal government.
It's hard for me to know what the mayor here can do, but he does have control of his own police department. Now, they may be outnumbered, and I believe they are outnumbered by ICE, which is insane. But their job is to protect and serve. I would hope they would do a little better job of protecting their citizens here, because it appears Minneapolis police, the mayor, see ICE as a threat. Yet they appear to act hopeless in the face of that threat, or without an ability to do anything. And look, again, it's hard to know from my position what they can do, right? At the same time, you would hope for something more from the city that recognizes what is going on.
So to everyone listening, stand with Minneapolis. Stand up for America. Recognize that your children will ask you what side you were on. Your grandchildren will ask you what you did to act to prevent this from happening again. To make sure that the foundational elements of our democracy were rock solid. What did you do to protect your city? What did you do to protect your nation? This is not what America is about. This is not a partisan issue. This is an American issue.
Okay. Just a few last things here. ICE officers can now apparently break into your home. No warrant needed. If they want to break in, they can break in. And seeing as how they're getting away with murder, I guess a break-in isn't out of the question. You also have an FBI agent resigning over the investigation into the shooting of Renee Good, because this was after Trump administration officials focused the probe more on the actions of Good and her partner and less on the officer who shot her. So this officer, this FBI agent, decided to resign because he knows the obvious bullshit that is going on. And there have been other high profile resignations over what ICE has been doing. Rashida Tlaib here, writing anything less than abolishing ICE is a cowardly capitulation to fascism. Absolutely. Yet, Schumer and Jeffries refuse to join Democrats' growing calls to slash ICE spending. Quote, I just don't understand how we provide votes for a bill that funds the extent of the depravity. From Senator Chris Murphy. You could not pick worse Democratic leaders in this moment than Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. It's hard to imagine what could be worse than simply signing on to Trump's agenda, continuing to fund ICE as they murder innocent people in the street. And you claim to be against it. So I want to acknowledge yesterday, on Friday, there were thousands and thousands of people out in Minnesota in sub-zero temperatures rallying against ICE. The videos out of this are incredible. So this was a statewide general strike. And it really is. It's important to be reminded that the vast majority of people are not on the side of what is happening. At some point, this has to end. It's hard to imagine how or when, but Donald Trump is not popular. He has continued to lose support throughout this 1 year of his term. So, again, just be reminded of that. This is not how things have to continue.
Killed a second person in Minneapolis. Footage is circulating on social media. Through our tip line at Dropsite News, we obtained footage of it from the perspective of what appears to be the woman in pink who's filming it from the sidewalk. We want to show you that harrowing footage here. Viewer discretion is advised. And then after this, we're going to go through what DHS has said about the killing, and we're going to show other video perspectives of it. Let's roll this here.
Go. What the fuck is wrong with you? You're the fuck, people. The fuck is wrong with you? Honestly. The fuck did you just do? What the fuck did you just do? What the fuck?
Federal immigration officials in Minneapolis have shot and killed a second person. It is January 24th, a Saturday. And I'm going to start here with the statement from the Department of Homeland Security, and then we're going to run through some of the footage so you can determine for yourself, how close to reality the statement that government officials released matches what actually happened. So let me put this up here. So this is from Fox News, which reports at 9:05 a.m. Central Time. This is the statement from DHS. As DHS law enforcement officers were conducting a targeted operation in Minneapolis against an illegal alien wanted for violent assault, an individual approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun, seen here. The officers attempted to disarm the suspect, but the armed suspect violently resisted. More details on the armed struggle are forthcoming. Indeed, they are. Fearing for his life and the lives and safety of fellow officers, an agent fired defensive shots. Medics on the scene immediately delivered medical aid to the subject, but the subject was pronounced dead at the scene. The suspect also had 2 magazines and no ID. This looks like a situation where an individual wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement. About 200 rioters arrived at the scene and began to obstruct and assault law enforcement on the scene. Crowd control measures were deployed for the safety of the public and law enforcement. This situation is evolving and more information is forthcoming. Okay, so let's take a look at what we know. So according to DHS, the person approached with a weapon. Let me pull up video that we now have that precedes the killing. All right. So it's not easy to tell, but if you look here, you can see that this is the same kind of backdrop to the killing that you're going to see later. This red building here. This is from a vehicle.
They doing too much, man, and they keep pushing people.
Oh, this is the actual killing itself. I want to show you a different video first. Hold on. Okay. Here is footage that was taken by a passerby before the altercation. This also tracks the beginning of the altercation. Okay, there. This is allegedly the man who soon after this will be killed. So he is filming the officers. You can see he's stepping back. Now the officer is kind of pushing him back. He's going back. In his hand, you can see a phone. According to DHS, this man approached officers with a 9mm. He's now looking back to make sure he doesn't slip on ice. Concerned for his safety. His life is about to be ended. And so immediately we see that no. This man was not any target of any enforcement operation. He was somebody there to observe what law enforcement was doing, and he did not have a 9mm. There's his second hand. Do you see his second hand there? No gun in the second hand. No gun in his left hand, and a phone in his right hand. Now, let's move to let's move to video of the killing.
They doing too much, man, and they keep pushing people, you know.
Oh shit! What the fuck? They killed him? Did they fucking kill that guy? Are you fucking kidding me, dude? Not again. Are you fucking kidding me? That guy's dead.
So this man has been pronounced dead. He was pronounced dead on the scene. Now I'm going to play for you the key moment that where DHS is saying that the man was armed and was attacking officers. You're going to see. Well, let's just let you see for yourself what you make of that claim. Okay, we can run this a few times so you can get a close look at it. In that officer's right hand, you can see the gun right there. So he has pulled the gun at this point from the man's waistband. It is legal to carry a firearm in Minneapolis, by the way. So there he is. So they pull it out. He has not yet been shot. He is on his knees, He is on his hands and knees, surrounded by my count, 8 officers. At least 8. 8 you can see. Let's watch it one more time. So he pulls that out. So at this point, this man is unarmed. If they plan to effect some sort of arrest here, it's unclear what he did. You saw him, he was just filming the officers, and then they kind of push him down to the ground. He did, it seems like, struggle on the ground, but why they were pushing him to the ground in the first place is not at all obvious. There's nothing illegal about filming officers. Nothing illegal about having a firearm with you. So they take the firearm from him, and it's after that that you see the shots fired. So according to the Minneapolis Tribune, phones were being confiscated, and or according to people who were on the scene, police were trying to confiscate, or not police, but federal immigration officials were trying to confiscate phones, and that some witnesses were taken into custody. This is a developing story. We're going to learn a lot more about who this man is, who was just executed. We're going to learn about who the shooter was. We're going to hopefully get video from the woman in pink. If you scroll back, you'll see that there is a woman in pink who was filming directly, just feet away from the scene, and she's lucky that she wasn't killed herself. So there's a lot more to learn about this at this moment. But from the video that we have so far, this appears to be a man who was observing immigration officials while they were in the street, which is legal, who was carrying a weapon. Whether or not he had a permit for the weapon, we don't know at this point. It's not like you saw those federal immigration officials ask him if he had a permit. They pulled it out of his waistband and then executed him. We'll continue to follow this story, and we'll bring you news on it as it develops.
Salute, family.
With the New York Times, have you activated the National Guard? I noted that Sheriff Witt has requested for additional assistance. Can you tell us whether they're going to be playing a role in keeping the people?
He activated the National Guard to go against Trump's federal ICE officers. That's actually what a civil war is. The federal government versus the state troops. That's what a civil war is.
Have, as we said last week, and we staged those troops. I'll have General Menke talk about where they're at, and again, use this as an opportunity to stress Minnesotans.
And it can kick off like that, slowly but surely, and the small hats will start. It can kick off just like that. You have a federal government that is going against the states, certain states. And this governor right here, this dude, never forget, he was trying to be the vice president. This old Tampon Tim, I don't like him no way. He wanted tampons in the boys' bathroom, but that's here nor there. See, these are white niggas that they don't like. But Tampon Tim got power. I keep telling you, because they're white. They have power too, though. And he's activating the National Guards, and they're going to go against, allegedly, Trump's troops.
The frustration you have, and as you saw this, they killed a man, created chaos, pushed down protesters, threw gas indiscriminately, and then left the scene, and then we're left to clean up. I understand the anger. I understand trying to parse who were the law enforcement on the scene when you got there after a man was killed is difficult for folks who are out there. But I can't stress enough, our goal, and I'll have General Menke talk about what the role of these Guard troops are in conjunction with incredible work from the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, from mutual aid across, and of course the State Patrol, of trying to get to the point where what we're saying is we can handle this and Minnesotans can express their First Amendment rights and have our folks on the streets and get these people.
Are your National Guard troops gonna shoot the federal ICE agents, Tampon Tim? That's all we want to know. Is this lady you pointing to her, is she gonna shoot something? Is she gonna step on something on behalf of the citizens of Minnesota? All this tough talk. You see, this you ain't gonna, that's why you lost. That's why you lost. Because they seen the weakness in y'all. Started killing your citizens and gunning them down in your face. No, your officers, your state troops, are they gonna shoot back? Yes or no? That's what they need to be asking you. Are they gonna stand around and y'all watch the Gestapo kill all your citizens, arrest everybody? And you do have some billion-dollar fraud going on. We want to arrest these people. I'm gonna be killing everybody in the damn streets.
Out of here. And so, John, if you want to talk a little bit, but the answer is yes, there's activated. He can talk to you about numbers.
Your governor activated different than having them staged.
Yeah.
So the question is, what's the National Guard doing right now? So we have, we have been on state active duty for over a week. So we've had soldiers prepared in the metro area to respond.
This is a real soldier. This is a real soldier. This ain't no game. This is a real killer that y'all looking at. All these other players that lay right here, I don't know if she ever bust no gun or nothing. This man is a killer. See, these National Guards, they be in out the country going to war zones, man. Who the hell y'all think the people in different countries fighting is than these National Guard people? You hear? So this man saying he had enough of Trump shit and his soldiers, they gonna stand up straight? Oh, I want to see.
Respond in a much rapid manner than if they were not mobilized. So we have a request from the Hennepin County Sheriff to support them, and that is to help them free up additional resources for other work that they need to do. And we have started coordinating with them this morning on that. And that first area of support will be assisting them with their requirement to provide security to the Whipple building. So we'll be helping them there. And then we are in parallel planning with other organizations within the state of Minnesota, to include the State Patrol, the Minnesota DNR, and other local agencies to render assistance if requested.
This photo is courtesy of the VA. So this is someone who obviously we're going to learn a lot more about from not only the family who has confirmed his death, but his coworkers, family members, those who loved him in the days that come.
Yes, we will keep that central to our coverage for sure.
just looking. Yeah, let's go to Adam Duxter, who's been on the ground throughout the morning. And Adam, give us a sense of maybe how some of the vibe has really changed there over the last couple of hours.
Yeah, hi, Derek and company. A relief, I would say, for many here after hours of a tense standoff between federal agents and state patrol and conservation officers. Now we've heard cheering, we've heard clapping, we've heard that and everything else here. And the one thing we have heard from people here is that they don't plan to go anywhere anytime soon. We've seen just about every intersection or every direction at this intersection as you go barricaded. But I want to talk to one person here. Why? Yeah. And you have lived here for some time. Yeah. Just up the road for a period of time. How would you describe just the way as a Minneapolis resident that you're feeling right now?
Can I describe it not as a Minneapolis resident, but as an American citizen? Thank you. This started as a pretext about immigration and the fraud, whatever. It's well beyond that now. It's into your Second Amendment. It's into your Fourth Amendment. It's into your Sixth Amendment. This is so far beyond what people at home probably are watching going, oh, it's Minneapolis, it's woke Hoth, it doesn't affect me, whatever. It does. It's you. It's you as well now. Wake up. Please watch what's happening here. I feel like we're performing CPR on what may already be a corpse called the Constitution. And yeah, there's plenty of people online laughing at us and going, haha, tryhards. But I think it's worth it, and I hope you do too.
Well, you were saying to me earlier that you were HOA president for a while.
Yeah, I'm the Square community, man. I like built real estate document search portal sites for Wells Fargo. I am the Square community. Like, yeah.
But you were HOA president, Frank and Nick. So this community to happen here, for this to happen here at this intersection on Nicollet in East Street, how do you begin to explain the significance of it happening here today?
I assume it's Kristi Noem's provocation. She saw how much this city hates her clowns, hates her scarecrows, and said, we'll double down. We'll put the boot a little bit harder on the throat.
How long will you stay out here?
Till my balls get cold. Just till it gets too cold. Probably all day, I think, yeah.
And you're one of, I want this crowd to see, thank you, you're one of over 1,000 people. I know we had the chopper out here earlier, but this crowd has no intention of going anywhere here at 26th and Nicollet. And you hear people with cowbells, you hear people banging on drums, you hear people banging on tables. But really, the one thing, as we've talked to many people in this crowd that we hear over and over again, is that they have no intention now of leaving this intersection. We saw it, obviously, when George Floyd was murdered in 2020. You still see the memorial as you drive through George Floyd Square. We saw it the day that Nicole Good was shot and killed just over 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. As the immediate response when the scene was clear was to set up barricades. And essentially, people would say, as they're here, claim the space for themselves. And that's exactly what we've seen happen now at 26th and Nicollet, is barricades up in every direction. There's over 1,000 people here. They're packed in super tight, but many people we've talked to say they have no intention of going anywhere. You heard that gentleman right there say till he gets cold, but many people here say they're not going anywhere anytime soon. And so, again, Derek, going back to your initial question of, how has the vibe shifted? I would say that for a long time today, it was a standoff. It was what's going to happen next. It was deploying chemical irritants and chemical agents. That has stopped. You have seen now anger, frustration, but also people say they're coming together as a community.
He just told Iranians not to do that type of shit.
Last thing I want to point out that I did find interesting is earlier, just a few moments ago, there was a woman up on top of one of those tables with a megaphone, and she was holding court in the crowd, if you will. Everyone was listening to her. And after she was done, I went up to her and talked to her for a moment, and she talked back and forth, hey, why are you here? And then I said, hey, are you from here in Minneapolis? And she said, no, I'm from Los Angeles, California. She said, I've been here for 2 days. She said, I'm an activist in LA. And she said, 2 days ago, I came to Minnesota because she said, I knew I had to be here. I think one thing that can't get lost on us in saying that is there are so many people here, whether it's media members or people who have come that are not from Minnesota or not from Minneapolis, but essentially have made what's happening here the cause that they want to champion, that they want to be here for. And so it's interesting when you hear people say, yeah, I'm from Los Angeles and I just had to be here. Because once again, almost 6 years later, it is Minneapolis being the center in some ways of what's happening, not just in Minnesota, but happening in the United States. And I think that as the crowd is kind of silent now, you could potentially even see that continue more. People coming in from all over the country, because this is where the conflict is. And it has been where the conflict has been now for 6+ weeks. We don't know when it's going to end. We don't know how it's going to end. And people who have been maybe watching on their TV or seeing it on their social media say, hey, I can't not do anything. I have to come. I have to be here. And I have to join forces with the people here who are on the ground. So just a truly unique scene. It is still very, very cold. Make no mistake about that. But the crowd here just says they're not going anywhere. They don't plan on leaving anytime soon.
Adam, we have heard that some local and state law enforcement are sort of backed outside of the perimeter so that they could be called if there was any need for public safety there. Are you able to see that at all, or have you heard that at all, that they're just staying back at this point and allowing this to go on as long as it stays peaceful there?
Derek, one thing to that point, I mean, that's the first I'm hearing of it in the crowd. You can look down 26, you don't see anything there. We were north on Nicollet a moment ago, you don't see anything. That doesn't mean that the situation is not being monitored. Last Saturday, we were at Minneapolis City Hall, where someone pardoned from what we saw on January 6th came, and they said they're going to burn a Quran. And as we were out there last Saturday, the one thing people kept saying was, "Where is police?" But then, when there was a conflict, police came really fast. And so all that to say, Derek, is that, you don't see anyone out here right now. That doesn't mean they're not watching or not monitoring the situation, right? In Minneapolis, they have many avenues and many means to just keep an eye on the situation. But I can tell you this, Derek, is that if there were to be law enforcement on the scene, I think you would see an immediate confrontation or back and forth, just because of how amped this crowd is still. And we've seen that happen over the course of the last few weeks, where the second law enforcement leaves, things die down as far as those conflicts or clashes. But then, should law enforcement come back in, that can start right back up. And I really do think that there's, just picture for a second, there is 1,000+ people here who are really upset. And when that
looks like we're losing Adam's signal there right now. He's there, 26 and Nicollet.
A lot of good points.
One of several videos that are out there. There's a second angle that appears to be circulating much closer to the incident, where you see the victim, I believe his name is Alex Preddy, and immediately preceding that incident, an ICE officer had pushed violently a woman to the ground, and he had come over to help get her up. And that is what precipitated this incident that very quickly led to an execution, a deadly shooting in the street. What we are seeing here is a momentous, pivotal moment for the United States. And I cannot underscore enough how
This happens all the
precipitous
time.
this moment
It's just a
is.
civil war now.
ICE and CBP, what we're seeing here, we will see which agencies were responsible. But at the end of the day, under this so-called excuse of border security, where Minneapolis is over 300 miles from the United States border, we have an unleashing of federal agents and violence exerting a tremendous amount of violence and lost life against the American
Yeah,
people.
because people like you set Minnesota up for failure. You unleashed the dogs on them when you shipped all those illegal Somalis in there, and they got $1 billion scandals going on. You look at these trying to keep a straight face. You know why? You know why the hell ICE is in Minnesota. You know why. You know why the goddamn Gestapo troops is in Minnesota, ma'am. And that's you unleashed the dogs of war on that goddamn community because you're a crooked, no good Democrat. You know, you've been getting rich off that goddamn scam in Minnesota. People shouldn't be dying in the streets, but you got blood on your hands, lady. And a lot of Somali fraud, $1 billion fraud has been going on with old Tampon and Tim them in Minnesota. That's disgusting.
Who are well within their First Amendment rights.
Guilty.
And in this case, it seems as though well within their Second Amendment rights. As you mentioned earlier, in this video, you do not see immediate evidence of anyone reaching for a firearm. It has been reported that he had a legal permit. And this administration's response is that the very fact that he was a legal firearm owner was a reason for them to shoot him in the street. You see directly from DHS's own accounts, they themselves do not claim anything in their accounts or their evidence about any precipitating action, just the fact that he was armed. This is a pivotal moment. And if we do not do something now to contain this abuse of power and violence.
That's disgusting, but America been killing black folks. And you got to, everybody know you can't have no gun, arguing with the police. You say you got a weapon, they'll shoot you, they'll murder you. But now it's a civil war. The racist bigots is going after what they call the Antifa, the white niggas, the white communists, gunning them down. See, that's very shocking to some of the people. Like, damn, they done them dirty. They've been doing that. This is America. There ain't no less. We haven't seen that was light work for these people. Now here she go. She want us to put her back in power. No, man, you will never get back in power. It's a civil war right now. It's over for y'all.
Which the administration has already indicated earlier this week in discussions about using the Insurrection Act, in which Carolyn Leavitt confirmed that it will be utilized, and they were looking at utilizing it against Americans based on their political affiliation. If we do not do something now, I do not know what can happen afterwards. We have to contain this chaos. This administration is declaring an openness and a justification for violence against American citizens based on their organizing, based on their political affiliation, and they are using the guise of DHS to do it. We have to draw a line in the sand now across sectors, politically, economically, in our media, and more.
She wants y'all votes.
That's an explosive memo that they're literally giving illegal orders. There's going to be a lot of court cases, and we'll see what happens. So there's a whistleblower inside ICE, and they're letting you know about a memo that went out telling ICE to don't worry about warrants, just break into people's houses. And they're trying to bury this memo. It's a memo from, I think, May of 2025. So Aaron Mennick says, holy crap, an ICE whistleblower just revealed a secret memo authorizing ICE officers to break into homes without a judicial warrant, which the Department of Homeland Security's own legal training materials say is unconstitutional.
Unconstitutional, dangerous as hell.
ICE then hid the memo from the public, passing it along by word of mouth. So here it is from the AP. Immigration officers assert sweeping power to enter homes without a judge warrant. That's a memo says that. And this is from January 21st, 2026. So here's the gravamen of the disclosure. The gravamen of the disclosure is as follows. By memorandum dated May 12, 2025, this is the May 12th memo, Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons authorizes ICE agents to forcibly enter into certain people's homes without a judicial warrant, consent, or an emergency. Specifically, in the May 12th memo, the acting ICE Director authorizes ICE agents to rely on Form I-205, which is not a judicial warrant, to enter the residence of an alien subject to a final order of deportation without consent, including by a necessary and reasonable amount of force. So it's saying, so what ICE is telling their agents, go ahead and use force. Go into someone's house to get an illegal alien, and you don't need, or anybody, and you don't need a real warrant to do it. Just use this Form I-205. While addressed to an all ICE personnel, in practice, the May 12th memo has not been formally distributed to all personnel. Instead, the May 12th memo has been provided to select DHS officials who are then directed to verbally brief the new policy for action. Those supervisors then show the memo to some employees, like our clients, and direct them to read the memo and return it to the supervisor. So they're not allowed to keep a hold of the memo. They have to read it and give it back. So they don't want any. So, but someone leaked it. And ICE secretly told its officers that anytime someone has been ordered removed, if someone has been ordered removed from the country, ICE can break down their door without a warrant. It has been accepted for generations that the only thing which can authorize agents to break into your home is a warrant signed by a judge. No wonder ICE wanted to hide this memo telling them that they could do it. Here's the memo. So chillingly, the whistleblower says that ICE trainers were directed, no paper trail, they were directed to train all of ICE's new recruits that these administrative warrants authorize breaking into people's homes, even though the Department of Homeland Security's own training materials still makes clear that it's illegal. Upon information and belief, and consistent with the May 12 memo, instructors for new ICE recruits are directed to teach that Form I-205 allows ICE agents to arrest aliens in their home without consent to enter the residence and without a judicial warrant. So they're going against the law. They're making this up, and they're telling ICE agents that they can do this, that they can break into someone's house without a judicial warrant. That's what they're being. So that's why they hid the memo, but they're verbally instructing their agents to do this. So in short, this secret memo explains so much of what we've been seeing over the last months, including this raid of a home in Minneapolis where ICE officers presented no warrant before breaking in the door. Turns out they were secretly told that they don't need a warrant. Here is, in a sign of how explosive ICE knew this secret memo would be, one whistleblower says he was only allowed to read the memo and was barred from taking note, and warned that employees had been punished for disagreeing. At least one ICE instructor resigned, teach that this lie that it's okay to break into someone's house under section F120 whatever instead of using a warrant. One ICE instructor resigned. I'm not going to teach that. Despite the May 12th memo being addressed to all ICE personnel, in practice, the memorandum has only been distributed to select DHS and ICE officials. Furthermore, our clients have been told that the May 12th memo must be treated with unusually strict access control for a document without any confidentiality markings. To wit, one of our clients was allowed to view the memorandum only in the presence of his supervisor. They were handed the memorandum, allowed a few minutes to review it without the ability to take notes, and were directed to hand it back. They were also informed that another employee had been resigned for contradicting a supervisor about a different ICE policy. Our client understood their supervisor shared this piece of information as a warning that expressing disagreement with the new arrest policy could result in adverse career consequences. Together, our clients are aware of multiple Department of Homeland Security employees who faced retaliation for expressing their concerns and or disagreements with the May 12th memo's policy change, likely constituting prohibited personnel practices. One client is aware of a seasoned government instructor tasked with teaching this new doctrine who chose to resign rather than be forced to teach what they understood to be unlawful. Based upon information and belief, ICE began formalizing this policy change as early as March 2025. The internal disagreement about the policy and the furtive manner of its rollout are indicators that agency leadership is aware that this new policy runs afoul of settled legal precedent and constitutional principles. So they all know that what they're doing is illegal. The people at the top, the people, the morons the peons at the bottom don't. They're being told something that's wrong. So this is it. I just read this to you. Also, looks like Senator Blumenthal office worked with the whistleblowers and has already put out a letter to the Trump administration demanding answers. Congress must act. This is a 5-alarm fire for our basic rights under the law. And here he is. That's Senator Blumenthal. And he says, I'm demanding Secretary Noem provide an explanation for this abhorrent policy, and that my Republican colleagues hold hearings and join me in demanding the Trump administration answer for this lawlessness. So if you're a Trumper and you're for this, then you're not for America. You're not for the Constitution. You're the thing you claim to hate. And just to let you know, here's the secret ICE programs got revealed. Operation Benchwarmer, Tidal Wave, Abracadabra, Dustoff, Fleur de Lis. These are just a few of the secret programs recently undertaken by Immigration and Custom Enforcement. ICE has become a self-appointed bouncer for America under Donald Trump, enlisting tens of thousands of federal, state, and local police and intelligence departments and agencies to not just root out illegals, but also to exploit them for intelligence. That's what leaked documents show. A Border Patrol official outraged by ICE's conduct has leaked to me this and other documents, providing an unprecedented glimpse into ICE's undeclared activities across the country. Many of these operations and their code names have not been previously reported. A 15-page long document marked law enforcement sensitive details 21 different major ICE operations, resulting, so it says, in 6,852 apprehensions since June. From Operation Abracadabra, a covert effort to develop informants among immigrants in detention, to Operation Benchwarmer, which alone spans the deployment of 2,000 intelligence assets across the country, the document gives a sense of how aggressively ICE is scouring neighborhoods and developing sources to spy on immigrants and Americans alike. So this is Operation Abracadabra. So there it is. Operation Abracadabra was initiated with the requirement of interviewing 100% of individuals apprehended to gather intelligence and identify follow-on targets, such as stash houses and individuals conducting illegal activity, tying every individual who crosses the border illegally to a foreign terrorist organization, a transnational criminal organization, and or utilizing the intelligence to develop targets. Intelligence gathered from subjects in custody is being successfully utilized and acted upon. These efforts are being tracked in E3 and data integrity. Okay. the secrecy has concealed ICE's transformation into a parallel FBI, a DEA, and an independent police force whose mission has crept well past the deportations that media tend to focus on. The media is telling a certain story about ICE, giving the blow-by-blow on the most public horrors, but never quite seeing that the bigger picture that's part of a larger war. So this is the surveillance state getting their boots on the ground. That's what this is. And they're doing it through ICE, which is why they're spending hundreds of billions of dollars on ICE. It's not to fight immigration. It's to create this secret surveillance state. So Trump's supposed to be against that. Trumpers are supposed to be against that. And that's exactly what this is. That's what the Golden Dome is. That's why they're spending $200 billion on that in the budget. That's why they're getting all this hundreds of billions for ICE. It's to create a secret police surveillance state. As military intelligence sources told me, the ICE crackdown isn't just about immigration. It's about gathering intelligence in support of Trump's war on cartels, as well as Antifa on the radical left, and those who are anti-American and anyone else who they consider terrorists. Operation Abracadabra was initiated with the acquired. Okay, I just read this. Another briefing about Operation Benchwarmer reveals the employment of agents dressing in plain clothes to disguise themselves as ordinary people in an attempt to gather intelligence. So they just gave birth to a new intelligence agency, and they're there to spy on you. Plainclothes agents have been embedded in transport vans, sally ports, processing areas, and detention cells to gather important tactical intelligence and our information. The briefing says of this nationwide operation, the purpose, it's focused on collecting information not normally gained during normal interviews. One senior FBI official tells me that there's widespread concern that ICE's actions are coloring the American public's view of law enforcement in general. The sources say that enforcing the law demands scrupulous adherence to the law in doing so, and fears that ICE has abandoned such a fundamental principle, believing through masking and its belligerence towards the public that the law doesn't apply to it, meaning it doesn't apply to ICE. So there you go. ICE people are resigning. They don't want to go along with this secret memo. They're just shredding the Constitution. That's not what anybody voted for. And if you did vote for that, you're very un-American. I voted for the Constitution to be enforced. That's what I thought libertarians were about. That's what I thought Republicans were about. I thought we wanted to reinstitute the Constitution, not subvert it and rip it to shreds, because that's what's happening. That's an explosive memo that they're literally giving illegal orders. There's going to be a lot of court cases, and we'll see what happens. And if you want to see my jokes about this, come see me February.
They knew they would be creating events exactly like what's happening right now in the U.S., Winter Storm Fern, that they will blame ultimately as a result of global warming, when in fact it's 100% engineered with chemical ice nucleation operations. But because they use the climate change term, people accept that as, oh, that's just a part of this process. No, it's not. It's engineered.
So the Davos WEF Forum in Davos 2026 is happening. It happened this week. And James O'Keefe went undercover, and he got them to admit all the stuff that was called a conspiracy theory about people talking about chemtrails and the pollution that governments and private people are putting into the atmosphere under the guise of fighting climate change. Okay. World Economic Forum elites openly admit that chemicals are being sprayed into the atmosphere to cool the planet and even onto the food supply. One insider admits most of these operations are handled by the military, carried out quietly and behind closed doors. James O'Keefe went undercover at the World Economic Forum Davos 2026, capturing officials on camera admitting to what's long been dismissed as a conspiracy theory. So let's watch a little bit of this.
So we invest in these technologies to assist with the warming climate, and the effect of sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere will help block some of the warming.
So James O'Keefe is posing as a guy who runs a company who's going to be doing these chemtrail stuffs and cloud seeding and things of that nature. So he's presenting himself as one of them undercover, and watch what he gets them to admit.
And the particles stay in the air for 1 year. So, and actually we're speaking to some of the airplane manufacturers and to see if they can emit some of our technology into the atmosphere to help with the global warming. That's right. Yeah, climate. I mean, we don't like to use the term climate engineering. It scares people. So we prefer.
But it's but for me, being an engineer, I think that's actually what you do. It's,
yes.
You can have financial engineering, you can have, I'm sure, climate engineering, because it involves something that's more scientific.
Yes, exactly. You're an engineer, you understand. And from Sweden, right? So we don't like to call them chemtrails. We don't like to use this.
So what do you call it instead?
Well, we call it aerosol injection. Aerosol. It's kind of like little droplets, and the droplets form in the air, and they stay there for a year.
Yeah.
It's modeled kind of a mini volcanic eruption, actually.
Yeah. And the aviation fuels have some sulfur in them, so it creates some sulfur dioxide emissions naturally, and that does have a.
So this is a guy's name is Kennedy Ritchie. He's the president and CEO at 4Air, and so it creates some sulfur dioxide emissions naturally, and that does have a cooling effect.
Now, this guy, Kennedy Ritchie, he runs a company called 4Air, spoke on stage, and he says on his website that he wants to, quote, decarbonize the aviation industry. He actually told me he was trying to eliminate contrails entirely, but then brought up cloud seeding.
A lot of the work actually came out of the military, so they do this all the time.
Whoa! Have you worked with them at all?
No, because they're a little more closed door about their procedures.
You ever heard of sulfur dioxide?
Yeah.
You've heard of that? Okay. Yeah.
It's actually pretty cheap to do it. The ability to put sulfur dioxide there is actually a pretty cheap way to cool down the earth.
Oh, yeah.
So the opportunity for, one or two people to do it is, impressive. He went a little further. He's like, it'd be interesting if the government start doing this over each other's territories on purpose. Like if we start getting weather modification as a government, either good or bad. The closest one I'm aware of one is someone called Airborne Snow Observatory. They do some more like weather, I don't want to say modification, but more like upper atmosphere weather monitoring is probably a better term.
Yeah. Now, according to the website Airborne, this is what this guy Ritchie brings up, measures snow depth, snow water equivalence, provides highly accurate snowpack data, is a commercial spin-off of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory snow monitoring technology used to help water managers and scientists.
So let me bring in our expert guest on this. Dane Whittington's here. He's a lead researcher and administrator for the website geoengineeringwatch.org. He's the executive producer of the groundbreaking climate engineering documentary called The Dimming, which is available on YouTube, has over 27 million views so far. He's a background in solar energy and has devoted the last 20 years of his life to researching covert global climate engineering operations and in an effort to expose them all and halt them. Welcome back to the show, Dane.
Thanks for having me back, Jimmy, and thanks for your continued attention toward the skies, because very, very few people yet have any understanding of the gravity and immediacy of the threat that's posed by what's taking place there.
So what that guy just admitted to was that, yes, they're doing this. They're doing this cloud seeding, what people refer to as chemtrails, and it's he's admitted that it's the military that does most of it. Now, how is that true? And how do you respond to hearing someone admit that?
Unfortunately, James was not able to get at anybody that's anywhere near the root of this issue. As I told you off air, I did speak to James about 14 days ago before he went to Davos. I tried to give him the best rundown I could as to what he might be looking for. And when individuals like the ones he spoke to allude to various cloud seeding programs, they're still not clarifying the separation between cloud seeding, localized publicized cloud seeding operations and climate engineering, two completely different animals. And the power structure will still continue to do everything it can to keep the climate engineering operations from coming to light, because the difference is a single engine propeller driven aircraft with cloud seeding might disperse 5 to 10 pounds of material in a single flight. KC-135 can dump 100 tons of toxic nanoparticles in a single flight. And that's what it takes to paint the whole sky filthy white. People have no idea how much material we're all breathing this on our food, water. It's everywhere, ubiquitous.
So like when you see something like this, what does that tell you?
That is climate engineering. That is not cloud seeding. And there's an effort by the power structure to blur the line between the two, because people don't feel threatened by a single engine propeller driven airplane with some flares on the wings. If they saw a KC-135 military tanker dumping 100 tons into the air, and they don't stay aloft for a year, I want to make that clear. We know from our work with the polymer chemists that some of the descent times, because they're only able to carry those heavy payloads into this troposphere, not the stratosphere. So the descent times are very, very rapid. That's why they're spraying so much. Descent times as low as 12 to 24 hours. So they're absolutely burying our skies in this filth, and we all get to breathe it.
Let me show you. Here's one more video, undercover video from James O'Keefe in Davos, where the WEF elites admit secrets about geoengineering, artificial rain, and they say BlackRock is behind all of it. Let's listen.
The ability to put sulfur dioxide there is actually a pretty cheap way to cool down the earth.
Yeah, I was just at the one of the events, and I support the work you guys are doing. They said that BlackRock was behind all the climate stuff, so I really appreciate that.
Got BlackRock behind us.
We spoke to a lot of people, and I spoke to this one guy from Denmark, and it was remarkable because he actually said that they would think about doing artificial rain, and he works with DARPA.
We're looking at Vanguard Technologies for creating our own platform.
Wow.
I'm working with Laser Light Comms and DARPA.
And are you familiar with this? How about SAI, stratospheric aerosol injections?
Oh, yeah.
Sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere. So yeah, artificial rain, we work in that space, yes.
So again, back to you, Dane. So he's saying this, there's another guy who's in this business saying he works directly with DARPA, which is the U.S. military. And so you're saying that the U.S. military is doing this. And well, let me just show you one more. Tom Wren says, I've been talking for some time about the fact that much of the chemtrail spraying comes from the military and secret DOD contractors. That's why Zeldin, who's the current EPA administrator, doesn't have access to this info. That's why RFK can't stop it, and why you can't do a Freedom of Information Request Act on it. Biden declared climate change a matter of national security, so these programs could legally be hidden, shielded from public scrutiny, and funded beyond his presidency. I recognize this post is easy to dismiss since I can't provide public evidence. That's part of the Biden's point, but this is how it's being done. So what he's saying is that the reason why we can't get information on this is because it's being kept secret, because it's being Biden deemed it an emergency, and so the military can keep it a secret that they're doing this. Am I reading that right?
Yes, it is absolutely a matter of national security. It's much more than just the U.S. military involved. You have militaries all over the country, all over the planet, involved, actively or passively. I'm glad Tom's getting more up to speed on this, because I spoke to him about a year ago and the subject was relatively new to him. So I hope he continues to research on the issue. And I wish we were talking about sulfur dioxide here, Jimmy. We're talking about aluminum, barium, strontium, manganese, polymer fibers, surfactants, graphene. This is a plethora of toxic materials. So the media pushes the sulfur dioxide part because it sounds benign and natural to people, because that's what volcanoes emit. That's just a smokescreen for what they're really spraying. And right now, as they're waging winter weather warfare in the continental U.S. with Winter Storm Fern, and that's exactly what it is. That storm is engineered top to bottom, and the plethora of toxic elements being dumped into that record warm moisture out of the record warm Gulf of Mexico and Gulf of California, that is highly toxic material. That map is extremely telling. There's not a meteorologist that can walk and chew gum that doesn't know that is absolutely engineered. You cannot create a temperature gradient like that with any natural hydrological cycle. That is engineered top to bottom.
So you're telling me this map right here, so explain to me what I'm looking at and how this show proves that this is an engineered weather pattern that's happening right now, this huge snowstorm that's cutting across the United States and this cold snap. You're telling me that this map, so tell me what this map shows us.
If you went back 20 years, you would never, or 20 years or further, you would never find anything that even remotely resembled that map. Weather moves in the northern hemisphere from west to east because of the Coriolis effect of the planet, because of the spin.
Right.
So how can it be record warm in the west and record cold in the east? That's patently wrong. So they high pressure dome with frequency transmission facilities, which are weapons of mass destruction like HARP in Alaska. They can superheat the ionosphere, creates a massive expanding bulge in the atmosphere up and down. That creates a high pressure dome in the northern hemisphere, which spins the upper level wind currents clockwise. So picture that red spot of above normal or record high temperatures as being a high pressure dome that rotates clockwise, rotating all the moisture from the Pacific around it, or low pressure zone below it, rotating below it. So they're spinning the moisture around the west, chemically nucleating it. And those are patented processes, by the way. These are endothermic reacting materials. Chinese government openly announced they're doing exactly this on a massive scale. All mainstream media covered it. If you bring it up here, they marginalize you. So they're seeding this cloud moisture with climate engineering aircraft, not the single engine propeller driven kind, but the kind that dump 100 tons in a single payload. And those endothermic reacting elements, in many cases, because this moisture is now so warm, it's reaching the surface, Jimmy, before it sets up. And that's why you're about to have massive ice storms, hugely destructive ice storms, because these materials aren't setting up until they reach the surface. And again, that's not natural either, to have an ice storm transition zone between the record warm migrating moisture and the eventual various forms of frozen chemically nucleated material that fall. That is an engineered scenario, period, top to bottom.
So what is in it for them to engineer something like this?
Again, you have the usual elements: aluminum, barium, strontium, manganese, polymer fibers, graphene. These are named in ice nucleation patents, chemical ice nucleation for weather modification. We have other elements named like urea, even in some of the patents. And these patents are posted at geoengineeringwatch.org. Again, this is not new technology. And Jimmy, you may remember that in various events like the Olympics, the Chinese government announced, don't worry about the rain, it won't. Remember the Sochi Olympics, where it was really in an area that was too warm for the Winter Olympics? Remember that?
Yeah.
So if you look from a distance in some of the shots there, because Russia's neck deep in these operations as well, so is China. So you had the mountain that the Olympics were held on, the Winter Olympics, it was covered with chemically frozen material. And if you looked at the surrounding mountains, same elevation, there was nothing. We have a satellite image, Jimmy, of a stripe of snow across flat Kansas, 10 miles wide and 300 miles long. Are we to believe that's nature? So people need to think of their first aid kit. Sits on their shelf, room temperature for 20 years. You mix the cold pack together. Those are endothermic reacting elements. You have ice instantly, chemical ice. So again, this is that on a scale that's inconceivable.
And again, so I'm having a hard time understanding what the governments get out of creating an incredible ice storm that's going to hit their own country. What do they get out of that? What would be the purpose? What's their aim and their goal?
First, let's start with any notion that any administration, whatever their political stripe, is here for the benefit of the American people. We need to throw that out the window right now.
Correct.
Second, we have the ability of the climate engineers and the controllers to confuse and divide the population as to the true state of damage already done to the planet, much of it from climate engineering, because it's been used as a weapon of weather for decades, a covert weather warfare weapon, crown jewel weapon of the military industrial complex. So when you create an event like this, it doesn't matter to most people if it's been record high for months and months. Once you create a cold down like this, that's the only thing they consider or remember. And they can't imagine then that there's any problem with the climate anywhere in the world, let alone any warming. So let's put this into a wider context. The most anomalously less warm region in the entire world since 2012 is the eastern half of the U.S. lower 48. Why would that be? That's the most populated portion of the U.S. by far. That's because the U.S. has the biggest military by far, funding 10 as much as the next 10 biggest militaries combined, and the U.S. military has 3 times more atmospheric tankers than all other militaries in the world combined. So this is an engineered event, period. We can speculate about all the agendas and objectives. There are many, and they are not benevolent, but this is absolutely engineered. That map is as unnatural, meteorologically speaking, as it could possibly be.
And so how do the elites protect themselves from their own experiments?
You know, I would ask this too, and that's a very fair question, because most people walk away from this issue because they say, quote, they wouldn't do this to themselves. And again, who are they? Those who print the money ultimately are at the top of this pyramid from every direction. They control media, they control elected officials, they control militaries. But how did they protect themselves from the detonation of 2,400 nuclear bombs? How will they protect themselves from Fukushima, for example, triple nuclear meltdown? No technology to fix it, no end in sight. We have 442 new plants that will go into meltdown as collapse ensues. We're building 60 more. We're not dealing with sanity. And this is most important, Jimmy. They look at this as a risk-to-risk scenario. That is their words, not mine. The risk of doing it versus the risk of not doing it, and not for benevolent purposes. Their objective is to retain their power till the brutal, bitter end, even if they only have ashes to rule over. So again, we have enough examples of human behavior, especially with those in power, that they ultimately don't care about the consequences of their actions, even to themselves, if that's what it takes to retain their power.
So I want to show you one thing. I showed you it briefly, but I'll read this is from Erin Elizabeth Health Nut News. She says, this was the sky today here in Florida in the back of our little farm. And she asked, Grok, please tell everybody how an Israeli company called Stardust Solutions is going to come here and start spraying April 1st. I wish it were an April Fool's joke. Give a full list of the billionaire donors, American and otherwise. And so Grok responds. Grok says Stardust Solutions, a U.S.-Israeli geoengineering startup, plans to begin outdoor tests of sunlight-reflecting particles in April 2026 to cool the planet. No sources confirm Florida specifically or an exact April 1st start date. Tests involve aircraft releases, but locations are undisclosed. Knowing investors include Lower Carbon Capital, that's Chris Sacca, Exor, that's the Agnelli family, Future Ventures, Steve Jurvenston, Future Positive, Kindred Capital, Attestor, and AWZ Ventures, total funding $75 million from just 13 backers. So, again, this seems crazy that there isn't a law preventing this. So what is the legality of this kind of stuff?
Let me back into this. I know Erin Elizabeth. I know Joe Mercola, Erin's partner. And on this issue, I hope they continue to do research, because the whole Stardust Solutions, Make Sunsets, all these startups are smoke and mirrors designed to distract from the elephant in the sky that has budgets not in the tens of millions, but in the trillions for the aircraft that are deployed all over the globe. So again, all of these types of smoke screens are designed to distract the population, to confuse them as to what's really going on, what scale it's on. These programs were first fully deployed over 80 years ago, Jimmy, immediately after World War II. They've been ramped up steadily ever since. In fact, 1998 was a major ramp up. Jimmy, you remember when they incorporated the term climate change instead of global warming?
Yes.
And they did that in 1998 because that was the warmest year ever recorded to that point in time. They decided to double down on climate engineering. They knew they would be creating events exactly like what's happening right now in the U.S., Winter Storm Fern, that they will blame ultimately as a result of global warming, when in fact it's 100% engineered with chemical ice nucleation operations. But because they use the climate change term, people accept that as, oh, that's just a part of this process. No, it's not. It's engineered. And we're perplexed at geoengineeringwatch.org as to why all of the sources that claim to be fighting climate engineering are pretending that events like what's happening right now is some sort of sign of global cooling or coming ice age. That's exactly the narrative the climate engineers and the controllers want. Confuse and divide the population, an event that's totally engineered. And we have online people, again, towing the narrative for the controllers. This is winter weather warfare, period.
And so, as Kurt points out many times on the show, there was in the 70s, there was a global treaty that where you wouldn't use weather modification weapons, right? Am I correct on that's when that happened?
Yes, it's called the INMOD Treaty. Yes, 1976.
And so when they had this, so as Kurt also points out, well, you don't create a nuclear treaty unless you already have nuclear bombs. You don't create a weather modification treaty unless you already have the tools to create weather modification in a way that it could be used as a weapon of war. So that was way back in this, that's 50 years ago. Back in the 70s, they already had this technology, so much so that they had to have a treaty about it.
You're exactly right. And that treaty came from the success of Project Popeye in Vietnam in the 60s. The U.S. military so successful at controlling the flow of precipitation over that country that the international community demanded these treaties. But we go back even further. 1947, Project Cirrus, U.S. military's first announced deployment of hurricane modification operations. And we knew they were beta testing during World War II because we have film footage of the B-17s that people assume is all condensation all over the sky. We found military archival film, B-17s flying in formation, leaving massive plumes, and then instantly shutting off. Did that plane fall out of formation? Did its engines all die? No, that was a beta test because we know they were deployed immediately after World War II. So when people ask, why would they want to do this? The obvious response is, why wouldn't they? Of course they do. With this weapon, they can bring populations to their knees, including the U.S. population, whenever they want, and blame nature. This is the crown jewel weapon of the military-industrial complex.
And so when we look at this map, and what you are saying, what's happening right now in the United States, this warm snap on the West Coast and this brutal winter storm happening in the Midwest and the East, you're saying that they're doing this and then they blame it because on climate change, because they always say, yeah, you're going to have worse storms, you're going to have worse flooding, you're going to have worse snow, and they blame it all on climate change. And you're saying that it's engineered.
This is where the equation becomes more complicated, and you're correct. You are exactly correct. There's nothing natural about this, and the map you see, the scenario you see, is a result of massive climate intervention operations. But what people need to also consider, we have been very poor stewards of the planet. I'm not denying that. We've trashed this planet in the geologic blink of an eye. We have problems. But we can't call anything natural weather at this point. Once you taint the system, you taint the entire system. And this is not one country doing it over their airspace. We have countries all over the world actively or passively participating. The atmosphere is literally a battle zone at this point, Jimmy. And we have, going back to 78, 2 years after the INMOD treaties we just talked about, we have 800-page congressional documents posted at geoengineeringwatch.org, important sections highlighted, outlining even then budgets into the hundreds of millions of dollars with participation between otherwise adversarial countries because of the cross-border ramifications. This collusion and cooperation has been going on for decades.
Okay, well, Dave Wigington, I appreciate you coming on and giving us your expertise. Anything you want to, did I leave out, you want to add?
Just that people shouldn't underestimate their ability to help in this equation. Don't go catatonic thinking that there's nothing you can do. If you share credible data from a credible source, if you start spot fires of awareness with those around you, ask them to do the same. If we all did that, we would push this issue to the full light of day, Jimmy. And if we can do that, the fur would fly. We would cause a shockwave around the world. Our military brothers and sisters who are participating in this, being told they're doing something benevolent, and they're very compartmentalized. Again, did the pilot in Vietnam that was spraying Agent Orange on his comrade on the ground, was he told that will kill your pal at some point down the road? Of course not. So again, if we share credible, verifiable data, and we all do that, and we force this to the light of day, governments around the globe would then be forced to face the fact that their populations know what's been done to them without their knowledge or consent. The proverbial pitchforks and torches moment, Jimmy. We need to reach that moment soon.
Okay, I hope so. Dane Whittington, everybody.
With the weather, because if you do, you're not alone. There's millions of people around the world who feel like there is something happening with the weather. You have storms that don't behave like they used to. You have these patterns that just feel off, and these events that keep getting called unprecedented, right? Now, most people chalk this up to, well, I think the media is just stoking the fire here because they're trying to push this whole climate change narrative. And this video isn't about climate change. It's not about any of that. It's about something that's far more sinister than climate change. And it's more, let's just say, hidden than most people even want to believe. So most people that do have this thought, like there is something wrong with the weather, they'll probably, more than likely just dismiss the thought right away. And, they're going to tell themselves that they're imagining things. The weather is too big of a system to be manipulated or to change so drastically. But what if you're not imagining things? What if there is an actual documented pattern that can verify that there is actually something going on with the weather? Now, there's a government document that's on a server right now, on a government server that's, I think it's like 52 pages, and it was written in 1996, decades ago. And look, guys, I know I covered this document before, but I think it's too important to just, forget about and stop talking about it, because what we're seeing is a slow degradation of what we find to be normal, because they've been slowly chipping away at our universal sense of normalcy. Everything just seems to be moving so quickly now. And this is by design, in my opinion. So this document, this government document is called Weather is a Force Multiplier, Owning the Weather in 2025. This is a real document. This is not conspiracy theory. And it talks about owning the weather in 2025, not 2030, not someday, 2025. And obviously we've passed that date, right? And the thing is, nobody probably told you about this document. Unless you've been following this channel, you probably have no idea it exists because people don't even talk about it. And one thing I think people really need to understand about this is that this isn't from a conspiracy website. It's hosted on archive.org, and it can be found in these government databases. I think it's like ntis.gov, which is a federal database. So this document was written by a bunch of Air Force colonels and, higher ups and officers and stuff like that. And it was commissioned by the Air Force Chief of Staff himself. So this is in page 10, and it's a direct quote from the document. It says, in 2025, U.S. aerospace forces can own the weather by capitalizing on emerging technologies and focusing developments of those technologies to war-fighting applications. This is right from the horse's mouth, people. Own the weather for war-fighting applications by 2025. They put this in a government database, and they never mentioned it again. Does that seem suspicious to you? Because it does to me. Now, let's look what they wrote, right? This is no interpretation. This is no speculation. This is just their own words. And you can verify everything for yourself, and you can decide what it means. Because I'm not saying that, they're actually controlling the weather specifically. What I'm saying is I think it's naive to assume that they're not, all right? Because we can take all the evidence and all the documentation and everything we see happening around the world, and we can piece it together in a way that it does seem to suggest that there is some sort of control over the weather. Okay. Now we're going to get into all the skeptical arguments here in a minute, but first I want to read a couple things right from this document so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So the document opens with this 1957 quote that's from President Eisenhower's Advisory Committee on Weather Control. Their conclusion was this, that weather modification could become a more important weapon than the atom bomb. Interesting. More important weapon than the atom bomb. This was 1957, mind you, way before the supposed moon landing, right? Before the internet, obviously, before we were thinking about modern technology like affecting us day to day, they were thinking about using it to weaponize the weather. And the funny thing is, too, there's actually more documents that point it back to weather modification happening in 1947. All right, but we're going to get into that in just a minute. And this is the part that they leave out of the history books and conveniently just gloss over when people are talking about this, because all the skeptics, they're going to say it's a conspiracy theory. Let's turn back to, I think it's table 1, page 10. It's called the Operation Capabilities Matrix. Look at the left column here. It says degrade enemy forces. And here are some of the tools that they want to degrade enemy forces with. Precipitation enhancement, basically flood the roads. Storm enhancement, deny their operations. Participation denial, induce a drought. Fog removal, strip their concealment. Okay, oh, it sounds logical, right? And then you look at the right column, it says enhance friendly forces. Precipitation avoidance, keep the supply lines clear. Storm modification, choose your battlefield conditions. Fog generation, increase your concealment. Okay, so here they're playing both sides of it. They're saying for the enemies, we can deny them rain, or we can make it more rain to hamper their movements. And then, to help the good guys, what we're going to do is we're going to make it not rain, and we're going to give some fog so that people can't see what we're doing. Guys, think about the implications of this. This is an operational planning matrix in an official Air Force document with a development timeline that was targeting 2025 that obviously has come and gone. So do you really think that they didn't succeed in their goals? Because this is documented. It's not theory. It's not conspiracy theory. And I'm not even giving my own interpretation on this. So far, what we're talking about is nothing but the documented facts, okay? And here's what makes it interesting, in my opinion, is that when they wrote this in 1996, they'd already been doing weather modifications like this for nearly 30 years. I think it was in March 1967 in Vietnam. There was a classified operation with the code name Popeye. Have you heard of this? Most people haven't. So the pilots of this operation, they had a slogan. It was "Make mud, not war." Cute, huh? For 5 years, these pilots flew, I think it was over 2,500 missions, sorties, cloud seeding sorties over Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. And what they did was they dispersed silver iodide into these monsoon clouds with a single goal: to extend the rainy season by, I think it was 30 to 45 days, and turn the Ho Chi Minh Trail into an impassable swamp, right? They're trying to deny the enemy's movements. And while this operation was running, while people were actually actively participating in this operation, what happened? The defense secretary of the United States testified before Congress. And when he asked about weather modification, he denied it. He said the United States wasn't doing it. He said it's not true. He called Congress conspiracy theorists. Well, then it came out that he was lying to them. So this is another lesson, guys. When you hear somebody testify to Congress about something specific, don't take it as fact, because they'll sit there and they'll lie right to the face of the congressmen, the congresswomen, and they'll lie to the American people because they can. They've been doing it, and they'll get away with it. They're not held accountable for their lies. So what would make them not lie? So in 1971, I think it was, there was a journalist that broke the story. And then the Pentagon Papers confirmed it. And then the New York Times ran it in, I think, 1972. So basically, it became a big story that they were doing weather modification in Vietnam actively while lying to Congress. Okay. But it doesn't end there, because this is where a pattern emerges. Because Operation Popeye wasn't the first weather modification program. No. The first one, as we alluded to earlier, was in 1947, and it was called Project Cirrus. And it was the first attempt to modify a hurricane. Scientists actually succeeded, and they seeded a hurricane off the coast of Florida with, I think they used dry ice, like a large quantity of dry ice. So what happened was the storm, the hurricane that they seeded, it changed course and it hit Georgia. It hit Georgia. So they were able to manipulate this hurricane in a way that it steered into Georgia, and they kind of panicked, and the project was buried. Nobody ever talked about it again. The bottom line here is the government affected this hurricane's path nearly 80 years ago.
That's a long time.
It sure is.
And then came Project Storm Fury. Have you heard of that? I think it ran from like 1962 to 1983, if I'm not mistaken. And that's like, what, over 20 years of government-funded hurricane modification research? They seeded 4 hurricanes on 8 different occasions, and they claimed 10 to 30% in wind reduction in half of those attempts. So they're basically just playing around with the weather, seeing how far their technology will let them go. But the program ended because, on paper anyway, as far as the public is concerned, they couldn't definitively prove that the results weren't like natural variations of weather patterns. But maybe that's just the story they gave us, because that's 20 years of public research. What were they doing privately? And we know whenever something is, whenever it comes out publicly, there's a whole nother private aspect to that usually we never even hear about. And if we do, it's so far in the future that it makes the information in there irrelevant. So this brings us to, I think it was April 1997. The Secretary of Defense was speaking at a conference on, it was like about terrorism and weapons of mass destruction and stuff like that at the University of Georgia. Well, you want to know what his exact words were? You're not going to believe this. And I'm going to quote right now. Others are engaging even in an ecotype of terrorism, whereby they can alter the climate, set off earthquakes and volcanoes remotely through the use of electromagnetic waves.
Did he just say what I think he said?
It can't be true. Oh, it's true. But he admitted it? Yes, he admitted it.
I can't stress how important this is, guys. You got to listen to the words because they're laying it out. They're telling us exactly what we need to hear. Right there, they're admitting that EMF waves, electromagnetic fields, can and do affect the earth itself, affect our weather, affect volcanoes and earthquakes. And that's exactly what quote unquote conspiracy theorists have been claiming HAARP has the capability of doing. So here you have the Secretary of Defense admitting that what happens at HAARP is actually not a conspiracy theory, that there is truth to it. All right. But that's not all he said. He added this at the end. He said, it's real. And that's the reason why we have to intensify our efforts. Think about that. He's admitting that, yes, it is real. And yes, we have to intensify our efforts or else we will be left behind. So do you honestly think that since 1997, when the Secretary of Defense made this comment, that people haven't been working on this? And guys, I can't overstate this. The Secretary of Defense himself, 1 year after this whole weather modification document was published, confirmed that the technology is indeed real. Think about this. I mean, this is... It's a little bit too much for a lot of people, but the world that we live in is not as cut and dry as they make it appear to be on the nightly news. So here's another interesting thing that most people have never heard about before. Did you know that there is a weather modification treaty that was signed, I think, in 1977 through the United Nations? Yeah. So there was a convention that banned the military use of environmental modification techniques. So if it's not real, if it's a conspiracy theory, if it's, if there's no truth to this at all, why would 78 nations sign this document saying that the military does not have the right anywhere to modify the weather? Why? And by the way, the United States was one of the countries who signed this treaty, the same exact year that Operation Popeye was exposed. So here you have another instance of the United States publicly saying, oh, we're not going to do this. We're going to sign this treaty because this is bad. People shouldn't be able to do this, while doing the exact same thing that they signed the treaty against.
Ancient cultures used to do native tribal dances to pray for rain, to bring areas that were very dry and have good rainfall. In the 20th century, clouds were seeded by numerous countries around the globe with various chemicals to produce rain. China was just doing this over the summer in Beijing to make sure that there weren't any rain, that there wasn't any rain during the Olympics. But all this has changed dramatically with the US military's secretive research and plans to control the planet's natural weather. This has not been given very much press, and we have to remember that we have a corporate-owned press where 85% of radio, television, and print media is owned by 5 corporations. So they're not going to talk about things that are of really serious consequence, and that's somewhat of the blessing, a mixed blessing of the internet, but there's certainly plenty of information on weather modification. The Air Force is on record as saying, quote, they want to control the weather by 2025, and we are not talking about just seeding the clouds for rain. Weather modification means, quote, any activity performed with the intention of producing artificial changes in the composition, behavior, or dynamics of the atmosphere, unquote. And as of April this year, there are more than 150 different weather modification programs around the world. Since about 2000, the Department of Defense and the Department of Energy have been spraying the entire United States sky with the toxic brew of chemicals and other biologic agents. Just want to show you something. We have 2 different kinds of trails in the sky right now. One are called contrails. How many of you know what contrails are? Contrails are what have been around from the ends of planes since World War II. These are very, very short exhaust trails that usually evaporate within a few minutes. You just look up at the sky and you'll just see a jet, sometimes with 4 trails, but it evaporates pretty quickly. How many of you know what chemtrails are? The military and some commercial planes are spraying us with what are called chemtrails. I want you to look at the, and oftentimes before there's a weather front, there are heavy assaults from these planes just before a weather front is changed and comes in. Military and some commercial jets have been fitted with huge barrels of at least 49 different kinds of documented chemical poisons. Among other documented ingredients in this toxic man-made clouds are pathogenic molds, fungi, weaponized viruses, and made in some places like the secret site at Fort Detrick, Maryland, which is supposed to be a cancer site. But there are a number of scholars and professors tracking this that have big questions about this. Barium and nanoaluminum particles. What do these do to the human body? Barium is an alkaline earth mineral. It was discovered in 1774. At low doses, it can act as a muscle stimulant. At high doses, it detrimentally affects the heart and the nervous system. Barium is toxic to all mammals, and that means not just humans. Aluminum, which is the most abundant metal in the Earth's crust, is known to diminish kidney function and destroy brain cells and cognitive function. Just think about it. Just between the aluminum and the mercury that we're breathing all the time, we've got already a serious issue about brain function and cognitive function. There is also documented evidence that the aluminum in chemtrails is released as nanoparticles, and that when they reach the Earth environment for wildlife in lakes and streams, it's causing serious problems with wildlife there. Researchers are also finding that nanoparticles interfere with the growth of plants. Nanotechnology is totally unregulated. Just this past month, a new research report came out showing and documenting for the first time that these nanoparticles actually go through the skin. Well, if you breathe them, whether they go through the skin or whether you're inhaling them, it's still a problem, a serious problem. Other toxic chemicals that have been documented include ammonia, ammonium chloride, bismuth, cadmium, one of the most toxic elements also in the environment, hexabromobenzene, lead, potassium iodine, potassium perchlorate, sulfur, and xylene. This is just a toxic spew of carcinogens, serious respiratory and skin irritants, cardiovascular and gastrointestinal toxicants. I'm asking, is there a relationship between asthma, now the #3 killer in the United States, and staggering rates of it for small children, up from #10 a decade ago, and the chemtrails? According to Clifford Carnicom, who's been studying chemtrails for 9 years now, and I met with him to discuss this in detail this summer, quote, "The true nature of these aerosol operations remain undisclosed and closed to fair examination by the public. All of this is being done by stealth to keep us in ignorance." There is a long, long history in the United States, tragically, not the kind of history that you learn in college textbooks, about secret chemical exposure to which Americans were subjected. I'd like to read you just a few of them. In 1931, Dr. Cornelius Rhodes, under the auspices of the Rockefeller Institute for Medical Investigations, infected human subjects with cancer cells. They were not told about it. He later went on to establish the U.S. Army Biological Warfare Facility in Maryland, Utah, and Panama, and then was named to the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission. While there, he began a series of radiation exposures, experiments on American soldiers and civilians in hospitals. In 1942, Chemical Warfare Services began mustard gas experiences on approximately 4,000 servicemen. The experiments continued until 1945 and made use of the Seventh-day Adventists who chose to become human guinea pigs rather than serve on duty. 1965, prisoners in a prison in Philadelphia were subjected to dioxin. Dioxin is so toxic, it is a byproduct of chlorine when it breaks down, whether it's in Clorox or in tampons, and a teaspoon could literally kill the entire planet. Dioxin is a carcinogen, and it's part of Agent Orange, that was suspected even before the military used it for Desert Storm. In 1996, the Department of Defense admits that Desert Storm exposure for all of the military they were exposed to chemical agents, including Agent Orange. So I have questions that have to be part of an urgently needed public discussion and outcry. When is this going to stop? Obviously, you don't know, and I would urge you, they're outside. There's a list of websites that you can go to, not just to Clifford Carnicom's, but this is the most, his website is the most well-documented one with lots of medical information. I've talked to over 100 doctors just in this past 6 months, naturopaths, MDs, all sorts of people in healthcare. And there we have staggering rates of upper respiratory and cardiovascular problems that we never used to have. There's a brand new emerging field, and that's called environmental cardiology. And they're not even dealing with the issues of weather modifications and chemtrails. I'd like to know, how are the real drought conditions by nature exacerbated by a constant spew of aerosols in the chemtrails? How much of global warming or climate change is actually caused by billions of tons of these aerosols that have been sprayed over us for the last 8 years without our permission? It's not just CO2 emissions that we have to deal with, but we have to deal with weather modification. How is weather modification by the military destabilizing our planet's natural weather? A controversial weather modification bill was just passed. Bush just signed it to the 109th Congress. There was no public discussion. These bills did not include any agricultural, water, EPA, or public representatives, and did not have any provisions for congressional, state, county, or public oversight of either expenditures, medical, and/or environmental consequences. In other words, we've really been guinea pigs for at least the last 8 years with literally every breath we take. 7 days a week, 365 days a year. What we are breathing now, as one of my dear friends says, the indoor air is just the same. What the indoor air is just the outdoor air inside. In addition, the Pentagon is on record this summer as saying it wants to resume open air testing of biologic weapons. There's a flyer outside on this with some research that Professor Francis Boyle has done. And he's been quoted recently as saying the Pentagon is fully prepared to launch biological warfare. Yet much of this technology is being used on us without our permission. We are signatories to No Germ Warfare and to the Nuremberg trials.
This is all wrong. How dare you?
Owning the weather, controlling storms, commanding the sky itself. What does that sound like to you? Well, there have been ancient texts that address this exact thing thousands of years ago. In Job 37, it says, quote, "He says to the snow, fall to the earth, and to the rain shower, be a mighty downpour. He loads the clouds with moisture. At his direction, they swirl around over the face of the whole earth and do whatever he commands." And then you have Psalm 148, lightning, hail, snow, and clouds, stormy winds that do his bidding. Weather answers to somebody. Scripture is clear about who holds that authority. And there's a pattern. There's a pattern that runs through human history that shows that man likes to reach for control of things that he has no right controlling in the first place. I mean, you can trace this pattern back from the Tower of Babel to the pre-flood world, all the way through history. There is some sort of attempt at trying to usurp the glory of God, trying to control what's supposed to be God's, okay? And that's, let's just say it's not going to end up well for the people who are trying to usurp the power of God. In the document we talked about, it said owning the weather. Think about how they phrased that. They're claiming authority over something that answers to God and God alone. Mark chapter 4, Jesus was in a boat with his disciples. A violent storm threatens to sink them. What happens? Well, they all get scared. He stops the storm, right? He stands up and says 3 words. And what happened? The wind stopped. The sea went calm. And the disciples looked at each other and said, who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him. And that should be obvious, right? Because creation obeys the creator. He's the one that created everything. Of course, it's going to obey him. He is the ultimate boss. So the bottom line here, guys, is whatever capabilities do get developed, whatever programs run, these classified programs, whatever they are, whatever emerges from these black sites and these unmarked budgets, well, none of it really matters. None of it really supersedes that authority. What they're trying to do is steal that authority. They're trying to utilize the power of nature for themselves, but it will ultimately fail because God is the only one in control, like I said before. So the question isn't whether or not they've tried to manipulate the weather. The question becomes, was it successful? Put it in the comments below. What do you guys think? Can they manipulate the weather? Are they manipulating?
Kofi, follow me.